I started my career in groundwater with the Department of Sanitation, and I worked there for almost 12 years. And since then, I finished my PhD, and I'm now working as a postdoc researcher at the University of the Free State at the Center of Environmental Management.
Great stuff. Great. Aqeela?
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. I'm Aqeela Parker. I am a hydrogeologist. I work for a company called GEOSS based in Stellenbosch. I just finished my master's degree and yeah, looking forward to being part of the discussion tonight.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Oudi Kgomongwe, and I am a hydrogeologist by training, and I have a background in consulting for the mining industry as well as working with intergovernmental organizations. And I'm now currently with the Department of Water and Sanitation at their national office and involved in integrated water resources management there. Thanks.
Thanks, Oudi. And last but not least, Maike.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maike Dickmann, and I am employed as a junior hydrologist at Piesold Consulting, alongside with my other junior colleague, Kgomongwe. I'm employed in Windhoek in Namibia at the moment. I'm Namibian, so I'm working for our office here, and then I do some work in South Africa, and I've recently joined the industry, so it's been just over 6 months. So relatively new, but already experienced quite a few things. So I'm excited to share some of the stuff. Thanks.
Oh, that's great. Just joining in the consulting world. May I ask what made you decide to perhaps become a hydrogeologist and what led you down this path?
Okay, so it's funny. I've actually studied geology, so I'm quite new to the hydrogeology side, and I'm learning so much every day. But I think it's because I always like to. I'm not so much for an office job every day. So I thought maybe if I, study something that is a bit more outdoorsy and can mix a little bit of things, that's why I actually went down the geology direction and studied geology. And then, now I wanted to do a master's in hydrogeology for a long time, but it just never came about. And so then I got this job, and, now I'm getting practical experience, which is just great. And it's amazing to be out in the field. Of course, we have a lot of days where we also just sit in the office, but it's nice. I love the change between going, especially as a junior, going to field and, a bit of change of scenery. It's great. And I think that's one of the bigger reasons why I chose to go down this route, is because I wanted to have a job where I can actually also be outdoors sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's actually a big highlight to what we do, being able to be indoors and outdoors, a little bit of in between, But it's interesting because you've come from a geology background, and me personally, I'd say the geology is the hardest part. So you've kind of learned really good foundations and add water to that. It's a good combination. I know that Oudi also comes from geology. Is that right?
Yes, you're right there. My background was hard rock geology.
Yeah, great. We've got geologists that are hydrogeologists. How's that been, and what also made you decide to choose this industry?
So I started off as a geologist in exploration, and there was a misalignment in my values in doing geology in exploration. Geology is, as most of us know, is about the bottom line profits, getting the ore out, money. Mm-hmm. So I felt a little bit disaligned with those values, and I gravitated more towards water because in mining there's a lot of water usage, especially groundwater in the drill rigs and stuff. So I became more sensitive to the water aspects in the field, and that's when I made my decision that geology is maybe clashing with my personal values, that I should move more towards hydrogeology, and I then pursued my master's in hydrogeology.
Oh, that's a very cool combination. A little bit of my mining experience too is, the mines kind of see a lot of the time water as a no-go. It's not actually, we don't want water in the mine because you want to take out the ore. Whereas on the flip side of that, you get a lot of, water supply. You want the water and you're sourcing for it. So it's really cool that you made that transition. Very cool. Nicolette, can you explain also why you chose this field? I know you've got quite complex geology up there in the West Coast. So you're probably a geologist by nature right now.
I actually don't come from a geology background.
Yes.
I did botany, zoology, and entomology, the living environmental stuff. And I actually landed in groundwater by accident, if you can call it that. I got a bursary from Water Affairs, and they needed to find a place to place me as a graduate trainee. And I ended up in the groundwater section in Belleville because they said they want me with my biodiversity background to look at the impact of groundwater abstraction on biodiversity. And then the first time I went to the field, my colleague Henry gave me a stack of chemical analysis in Excel spreadsheets that was printed out and said, now you can go and tell the farmers what's going on with their groundwater. And I did the only thing I could, and I plotted it in time series graphs, and I said, yes, it's up and down and whatever else. It's all I knew what to do. And I decided that's not enough. And it was the Tuesday I sent an email to IGS and found out what's the possibility of me just attending the honors classes so that I can get the correct background. And by Friday, I had a letter in my hand that says, you've got admission to come and study for a master's in groundwater. So that's kind of how I ended up in groundwater, and I haven't looked back yet. I enjoyed it so much.
Well, I must say that's a very inspirational story. It just shows that sometimes reaching out and taking a bit of initiative actually gets you through bigger doors, you know. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that in this kind of conversation piece here. I know like Aqeela, she was in her honors when I was in my master's, and she took a lot of initiative during that time, and from that got quite a bit of mentorship. So it's great. And Aqeela, what made you choose this kind of field besides obviously the inspiration that I instilled in you? I'm joking.
No, I have to give you credit when it comes to that. But for me, I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be a hydrogeologist. I think that I really just enjoyed geography on school. Like, I didn't know what hydrogeology was, to be very honest. You know that there's groundwater, but you don't really understand at that stage like how complex it is and what actually goes on. So I joined UWC under environmental and water science, just knowing that I wanted to do something in the environmental field. And I think that when we did hydrogeology, I was like, oh wow, this is so complex, like it's actually so interesting. And I think that's what hooked me. But I think that even like my honors, I did it in groundwater, surface water interaction, but I think it's like being exposed at UWC to like Nicolette and Dr. Nell and you and Angelo, and it just kind of inspired me. And it was only actually in my honors year where I decided, okay, let me see what proper hydrogeology is about, like strictly groundwater, that I was like, wow, no, this is it for me. So yeah.
No, that's very cool, because like sometimes you think of, when I was at UWC, you think of surface water versus groundwater. What are you going to do your thesis on if you end up studying further? And like you said, groundwater is more of you're an investigator of the earth. You don't know what is happening, but you're trying to investigate exactly what's going on underneath. So very interesting. Going back to Maike's point of choosing this field because, you got to get more outdoor experience, and, you kind of wanted to live that work outdoor lifestyle. What do you think that this industry is mainly male dominated when you're out in the field? Do you think that there is an advantage being a woman in the field, or disadvantage being out there?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to just speak from the little bit of experience I've had now. But I definitely think it is quite a male-dominated industry still. It depends, I guess, on where you are in the world. But I must say, when I took my job interview with the current company, I was quite pleasantly surprised because there were a lot of women in like leadership positions already at this company, like engineers and scientists and so on. And that was amazing to see. And it was quite surprising. I was always expecting, you always hear of engineers mostly, male. And then I've met some women because our company is an engineering consultancy company. So our hydrogeology team is quite the small one. But I must say, from that side, I do think there's a lot of role models out there in Southern Africa, like Namibia, South Africa, and so on. The field is quite small, so everybody knows each other, and that's quite cool as well, especially in hydrogeology. And I think if you look at going out into the field and doing the raw field work, like doing the hard grind and getting the data and supervising contractors, that's when I think it becomes a bit tough because people always judge you. Like, that's what I find as a woman. First thing is like, oh, okay, so you are now here in the field, you're going to do this job. And I think it is weird for the contractors a little bit, because now they have to listen to a girl, and it's a younger girl as well. So it's not like you have so much experience. And I think that's where it becomes a bit of a, you're trying to be the boss and get the job done because they need to do the work so you can get the client its data. And so that they need to do the job, but you're just supervising. And I think when it comes to that, it's so important that we as women just make sure that, people don't walk over us. We come in there with like a bit of confidence. And even though like that was for me, my first experience out in the field was also quite scary. I had like a bit of a handover from my colleague, and he was kind of showing me the ropes, and then, left to yourself to figure out. And also knowing that all these guys, that the drilling contractors are all, this industry is quite tough. And then you've got these guys that you have to tell what to do and stuff. Although they know what they're doing, you're just kind of making sure they're doing their job. And I think that's where it gets hard being a woman. Sometimes you just get put into this box, like just because you're a girl now, suddenly you don't fit in here or whatever. And I think that's where we have to break a lot of barriers still. I think it depends on which country, and things are moving a bit. There's change definitely happening. I can feel it. There's a lot of change happening. I can see it in our company. We're working at a lot of girls, which is amazing to see in different sectors. But being a woman is in this industry is relatively newish, I would say. I think the ladies that are now for more than 20 years experience in this industry have had it much harder than us. I think they had to lay down the groundwork of, making it known that women can also work in this industry. And they've done all the hard work for us to now walk into this industry and feel a little bit more accepted. And I think that's really great to see, especially like our boss and our supervisors as well at the company. I can see that it wasn't always easy, and they had to be quite tough to make it to the top in this field. And they've opened up many doors for us now as younger girls to come in and as women, and taking over and showing that we can also do this industry and we can also work hard. And just because we're women doesn't mean we're not in the right place here. And I think there's a few things, but I don't know if we'll get to that later, like some pros about what is actually also good being a woman in this industry, but I'll speak later about that.
Oh, great points that you made there, Maike. It's very interesting that you had that perspective of, the women led the way to where we are now. And when you say that, I actually have a couple of inspirational people in mind. And when I was doing my honors, I remember Nicolette would come through, and she would be that kind of person for me, like, she knows so much about this, and wow, I also want to be this kind of woman in industry. So you're right, we should look at the future in that kind of sense, because imagine, like you said, in an engineering dominated kind of industry, imagine being one of the first women to get there. You do have to come with a lot of presence, a lot of assurity, and especially monitoring a drill rig. I'm a little small person that's there telling them to redo this hole, and you're not going to get the greatest feedback or from a whole team of guys that now thinks that a little girl's going to tell them what to do. But when you're contracted to get the job done and you have this sort of presence, I think that definitely helps. Yeah. Nicolette, do you have anything to say?
I've been in the groundwater field since 2008, so I think I've got the most experience from the panelists, but definitely not of the women. And from my, sorry for the noise in the background. When I started there, I remember people like Rowena and Jane Barron, and it was basically a handful of women that kind of made their mark in groundwater. And as I started getting deeper into the field, I noticed more and more young people coming into the field, girls, and it was actually good to me to kind of support them and to help them along. And I think one of the things is what was good is that I had a couple of good mentors. Men in that case, most of them, except of course for Rowena. But if you can pick up a couple of mentors along the way to help you along, even a woman can make a difference in the field. But what I realized was, from my own experience, it's always good to have a guy with you in any case for some of the stuff that you can't do. Because let's be honest, there's some things that I've got problems with my nervous system. I don't have the strength in my hands to do certain things. So I had to be realistic about things like that.
Yeah, there's just no outbeating a man's strength. I mean, even if you're the fittest chick there is, you know, sometimes you got to do infiltration tests and carry 25-liter buckets, and you just need a good, strong man to come with you. Aqeela, do you have any other things to add to this conversation?
Yeah, like I think that in general, I think it's just that men just have more strength, so it's always nice to have that with you. But I feel that the fact that so I also feel that it's predominantly male, our profession, but more I wouldn't want to say older generation, but you know, the people who've been here for a while, it's predominantly male. When I look at the new hydrogeologists coming in, and if I look at our company's structure, there's a lot of women, which is amazing. And I think that it's because we're moving forward. Like you said, there's a lot of change that's happening. And I think that it's like, we can actually do it. Like who says, like we make a plan. We can do it if we want to. Yeah. So I think that it's definitely changing. Yeah, the climate is changing.
Yes, definitely. I also see a bit of my company structure in that same setting where it's predominantly male at the top, but a lot of our staff is, you know, 50-50 kind of basis. So yeah, transforming. Oudi?
Annalisa, can you kindly repeat that question so I can add on to what the other panelists had said?
Sure, no problem. I was just saying, do you think this field is predominantly male, and where do you think it's kind of going in terms of, you know, women, and yeah, what's your experience been like? You could just fill in on anything else that anyone said.
Yes, sure. It is a male-dominated environment, much like geology. And I think mainly because it's mainly outdoors and in rugged terrain and deals with heavy machinery and those sort of equipment. And my experience has been that there has been a bias towards women, especially when they embark on doing field activities. You are already judged, or there's already a judgment even before you even begin the job. So, but I think the bias is changing, that you are given a fair chance to prove yourself. So that has improved over the years, and there's still a bit of room for improvement. Much like the bias that most of us have when we get on a plane and you hear that the captain is female, some people start grabbing onto their seats, or when there's a slight turbulence that they would ordinarily feel comfortable with when a male pilot is heading the plane. All of a sudden, when there's a sudden turbulence, you're like, this woman is trying to kill us. So is that kind of a bias that we need to check both in both genders, and also allow women an opportunity to embark in this field? And let's be real, we have our differences as being male and female, and I wouldn't expect a man to handle the household as well as a woman would. So we shouldn't expect a woman in the field to be different, to perform differently, as if she got some superpower somewhere. So allow them to thrive as they are. And I think if we're allowed to be simply women, there's a lot we can do, and much more we can bring to the table in that regard.
Oh, that was very well put. It makes me think of the difference between, you know, us progressing in the work and office culture, and, you know, being more accustomed to a lot of women and maybe a good ratio of women to men. But I think there's still very difficult in the field, you know, when you're dealing with contractors, or you know, you're dealing with that different side that I don't think is going to migrate that easily. So yeah, no, great stuff. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, I know we touched on it earlier, but like, what are the pros of being a woman in this industry? What do you think from your personal experiences as a woman that you have the edge? Anyone can just follow from here.
I'll go first. I think there's a big part of us as a woman that people they underestimate it, and we underestimate ourselves a lot. And I noticed it when I was in the field, and I was dealing with the drilling contractors, and I was there was like this transition handover now from my colleague who's male to myself. And it was funny because I could see how he handled the contractors and how he spoke to them, and you know, and then when he left and it was just me, of course we all have our own way of dealing with them. And I just realized we actually as women have a lot more, I don't know how to put this, but it's like we don't come in there with this like heat, and we are the boss now, and we are, you know, the authority, and we kind of speak down a little bit on. We don't do that. I feel like guys sometimes tend to do that more, and they don't realize it. It's not like a bad thing, but I find as a woman, maybe we can, you know, converse and communicate with the people that are doing the job for us on a more of a level where, you know, there's like a mutual respect, and it's, I noticed that a lot. And that doesn't mean we let them walk over us, you know. They're still, especially the contractors, they can be quite sneaky, and, you know, they try to push your buttons, and you're just like, no, you know, you're doing this, I need to report back. But I'm just saying that we as women, we do have like a more of a feeling of how to converse sometimes with people and get them to do the job without having to be like such a huge authority person. I like that a lot, and I think we must give ourselves more credit as women that we have like these skills that help us in the field without having to be the strong masculine person. And then on top of that, I think also we do tend to have a very good gut feeling, our intuition. I think I noticed that in the field as well, and we need to like, you know, build on that more and trust ourselves, because you can feel when something is off, or you can read people maybe a little better, their emotions and how things are, and that's sometimes important, especially when you're like around a rig and now things are going a bit wrong and you can sense something is off. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to just trust ourselves a bit more and give ourselves more credit in the areas where we are maybe a bit stronger, not physically, but yeah, than guys, and build on that. That's I think one of our big pros being women in this industry.
Yeah, Annalisa, if I can just come in there, I think Maike just took the words out of my mouth. She put it well, that what she just described as women showing up as women and nothing else, in their best element, and that's what we bring. And if we leverage on that, there's so much that can go well for us. And yeah, I think Maike just put the nail on the head on how women have other strengths. They're subtle, but they're so powerful. And we know this in our households where the mother of the house may not scream at the top of their lungs to get you to do something, but her gentle command gets you to do the job. So yeah, she clearly put out our strengths and how we should not feel bad that we're not behaving as men to get the results, but behaving as ourselves to equally get the results or even better.
Nicolette, I see your mic is off, so I thought you were going to jump in there.
I actually had a similar thought, but one of the things that I think, because we're underestimated, we can actually surprise people. And when people realize that you really know what you're talking about, you actually gain a lot of respect. And in the process, you get people that will come back to you time and again to ask you for help because they know that you know what you're talking about. And it's very important that we realize that we don't have to stand back for anyone else. But we also need to realize that we're individuals. Even though we're grouped as women, we're not all the same either. So where Annalisa is very good at modeling, I don't know anything about it. I know what a good model should look like, and that's about it. But that's the thing. We should make sure that we show people our strengths, and we will get respect from that. And one of the things that I realized in the field is, yes, there is that thing of the old boys club and people, they're working for kind of being hesitant working for with a woman. But the moment they realize that you're competent, you're actually won the battle.
That's very well put. Embracing who you are and your strengths. I also think that because we're underestimated, like what you said, you know, you kind of want to prove yourself a little bit more. I don't know if it's the same with you, but especially because I come from SRK, an engineering company, you know, you are with a lot of men, and the women that I would see in the company really had to know the knowledge. They had to know exactly what they were talking about at a specific time. It was very, yeah, you had to gain respect. I don't know if it's the same. Aqeela, do you have some of the pros for being a woman in this field?
Look, I think that everyone put it so amazingly, but I think that you also, when you're in the field, you also realize like how self-sufficient you actually are. So yes, we might not have the strength of a man, but like I said earlier, I think that we are self-sufficient to a point where if it needs to get done, we're gonna make a plan to get it done, you know. I think that pros in general, it's just like, I think everyone just put it in a great way. You come with a different way of thinking. You're a little bit more, you know, different with your approach, and in that way, just being yourself, you get things done. So it's not like a specific way that things need to be handled, or, you know, it's just, yeah, I think a pro is just that we bring something else to the table, which is just as good as what a man would bring. So yeah.
Great, guys. That's really good points made. The flip side of this is, what are the cons? So does anyone want to start the floor on that? I see Nicolette smiling there. You're on mute, yeah.
One of the things that was a bit of a problem when I was working at the department was safety. For about 4 months, I went and did monitoring completely on my own. And at around the 5th month, they said, sorry, you're not allowed to go out alone anymore because you're a woman. And they insisted that I take at least one male colleague with me. But with one specific colleague, I said to them, with him, it's actually better with me going alone because he might actually endanger me. So safety for a woman is actually a big problem working in the field alone. But even nowadays, with having a man with you doesn't guarantee that you're going to be safe.
Yeah, you gotta have to have an intimidatingly strong man. Aqeela, do you have anyone else to say about the cons besides strength and maybe safety?
Oh no, I think that a big one is safety. But like Nicolette said, that you don't necessarily need a man. You know, if you know that you're going out into a remote area or an area that is maybe known for a high crime rate, it's just better. Because I see part of the question was like, how do you work around it? And it's just to always maybe not be alone. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a man, but I think that you're less vulnerable if you're with someone else. And yeah, I think that there's also other things that we can equip ourselves with, like pepper spray, etc., and just pray that you don't have to use it. But I mean, yeah, it's just safety for me is a big thing. I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind when I read that question. So yeah.
And you got to be very do your research on, like what you said, what area you're going to, because for instance, if you were to monitor at Cape Flats and there are really some hectic areas that you don't want to be alone in, not even a gun will intimidate people. They actually want a gun. So oftentimes if you have a bodyguard and they show their gun, you're more of a target. So you really got to know what area you're going into versus farmland, you know, which might be a completely different setting. But yes, safety.
Sorry, Anna, I also just want to add that that's not, I think it also depends on like the country you're in. So I think a woman in hydrogeology is different for women in South Africa, you know, versus someone in the UK or I don't know, you know, I think it's just women in South Africa in general have this, we're just seen as more vulnerable over here. Yeah. It's not necessarily just in hydrogeology. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's very true.
I just wanted to add to that. That's a really right statement, because I've seen both sides, working in Namibia and working in South Africa. Here in Namibia, I feel very safe, and the sites I've been to have been extremely remote, but it's so safe. And because we don't have so many people here, you don't actually come across many people. And so I think here more it would be like, I don't know, running out of battery on your phone and maybe not having signal. Actually, I have a story where we went down into the south of Namibia and there was no cell phone signal, nothing, at the site that we were sampling. And so if something goes wrong there, and you don't, let's say your car gets stuck, which happened to us, and I wasn't the one driving, just saying, and then you don't know who do you call and stuff. I think that's more from my side here, is like the remoteness in Namibia, and so yeah, definitely always have a backup option, and let people know when you're out on site. Maybe a colleague is working on a similar project in the area, just let them know that you are going out from this and this time, so that if you don't come home or he doesn't hear it, they know that you're out there. So that's just one thing.
It's very cool to hear the contrasting side and working in a different country and the kind of level of safety that you get. Yeah, alleviates kind of some of the stresses that we face. I know that there's also a little hack, you know, when you run out of reception, you can just load your Google Maps beforehand. And luckily that thing works like a charm, even without reception. So that's a little bit of a trick home. I once had to drive from Springbok back to Cape Town, and I remember not having reception for a good chunk of the way, especially monitoring in some of the farms. There was nothing whatsoever. So luckily I tagged the locations before I left reception, and I could find my way home just by looking at the maps and seeing my little blue dot moving along. Yeah, Dai, do you have anything to add on what the cons are as being a woman and maybe how you work around it as well?
I think the other speakers mentioned the top cons of being a woman in our industry. And I think another one is when we're out in the field, there is almost no consideration for a woman's needs in terms of the bathroom, whether they may want to use the bathroom. So you just have to make a plan. And it's not something that we can easily voice that you need some private space or a proper toilet or something like that. It sometimes comes across as you being difficult, as well, why can't you do what the gents are doing? So that's one of the cons that I can add on to what they've already mentioned.
That is a good one. And we're all smiling here because we know we went behind a bush. And we know we had to do a long walk to find that bush. Yeah, okay, so that was really good pros and cons. I was wondering, what do you have as advice to the next generation, seeing that, you know, we've seen that women have paved the way to where we are right now. What do you foresee that the future looks like in hydrogeology, and what advice do you have for women that are thinking about maybe entering hydrogeology? Besides hearing our pros and cons, they may be on the edge and don't quite know whether it's safe enough for them. What is your advice to women that are looking to study this?
Can I start?
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh no, it's fine. Maike, go for it.
No, you can go. You go first. I've been going first, so you go first.
No, I was just gonna say that it's like my advice would be, or if we were kind of speaking to someone who's on the edge and wanting to, like, when you just want to get them over, would be that it's such a fulfilling job, especially in, I would say, like, this is one example that I can think of right now, in like water supply projects. When you're supplying water and you have a successful borehole in like a water scarce area, and it's really so fulfilling. And I think that a lot of people don't realize like how broad hydrogeology is and just how much you can do with all the branches of hydrogeology. So I would say that it's a really, really fulfilling job. And yeah.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to touch on that. I don't have much to say, but I just wanted to add that my advice would be to find yourself someone, and I hope that when you do join the industry that you have already some women in the company or in the field that you're working, and then you know, kind of find yourself a mentor, and also just keep asking questions. Like, there's a lot of things that you don't know and you're scared of, and I've learned that a lot now in the last few months, when you come new into the industry or into a new job, that you can't sit back. You just got to ask. And even if the questions seem silly at once, they will come and they will help you. The people are there to help you. And I think for me, I was very lucky to have had great seniors who are all women, most of them, which is amazing. And I think just my advice would be, find yourself a mentor and keep asking questions. They are so willing to help. They've been there. They started out as well, just speaking from a junior perspective. And I think even if it gets a bit scary some days of like, what am I doing? Is this the right thing? You know, you just ask. And I think that would be my biggest advice. Just make sure you always voice your help and don't hold back, because there are a lot of people who know what you're going through, and they are so much more than you understand willing to help you.
That's very true. I think a lot of people that are in this industry are just passionate about what they do. You know, it takes a sort of zest to be in the enviro field, and especially knowing how diverse our industry is. You know, besides being passionate about water, you're passionate about something in water, and you become specialized somewhere along the line based on your interests. So it does attract a very passionate crowd that is willing to teach. So it's a very good one as well. Also on that point, you know, if someone was on the edge right now, they could even just reach out to any one of us, and, you know, LinkedIn is your friend. A lot of people are always willing to answer some questions that I had, and it's a good platform to potentially gauge where you are. Oudi, do you have anything to say for someone thinking of being a hydro?
Yes, I'll tell them, go for it. We need more hydrogeologists. And if they're women, even better. So yeah, we need more hydrogeologists in the country, whether in public service, private sector, civil society, international organizations, just to get this invisible resource below our feet seen in practice and get respected and move away from the shadow of surface water. So, and I would also advise them to not feel intimidated in the beginning. Focus on being competent and don't let someone else's bias diminish your ambition on embarking on being a hydrogeologist. And yeah, they just need to go for it. And as Maike has mentioned, if you don't get a mentor, there's mentors online on LinkedIn. I have mentors that I just follow, knowing that there's a woman up there doing something amazing. You know that you are next, you are in line to get to where they are. So it just keeps your hope alive and knowing that it is possible. You just need to stay the course. So yeah, thanks.
Nicolette?
From my experience, one of the things I would recommend to people is do lots of field work as much as you can. I learned a lot about groundwater from doing just plain monitoring. I had someone that said a 3-year-old can do monitoring, but a 3-year-old is not going to do it with understanding. You learn so much, and Prof. Van Tonder and a few other people at IGS kept telling us, you cannot give comments about the hydrogeology of a site if you haven't visited at least once. And the other thing I want to say is use the opportunities you get. Don't just wait for them, go and look for them actively. Use it. Learn everything you can, because you're never going to get to in groundwater where you know everything. That's one thing that I've learned long ago. You're always going to find something new that's going to show you that you didn't know everything. But please remember to keep a balanced life. Don't work yourself to death. No one's going to put up a statue for you and say, this person gave her life for groundwater. Do it with passion, but keep the balance, please.
Very well put. I'll do that. Don't worry. One day I'll remember. I'll take notes. Great. Does anyone on the floor, any of our audience members, have any comments, something that they want to add, questions? We're all very open to chat right now. So feel free to just put on your camera and keep the conversation going if you have anything you'd like to say. I'm sure there are a few people right now a little bit hesitant, but just go for it. Great. We have Palesa.
Evening, everyone. Sorry, I'm not gonna put on my camera. I'm not camera friendly at the moment.
Well, we prepped for this, don't worry.
For me, it's more of a comment more than a question, but totally grateful for this session. Well, I'm a geologist. I did my honors in geohydrology at IGS. Currently busy with my MSc with Northwest University, majoring in mining hydrology. So currently, in terms of my job, I'm still in the geology because that's sort of my background. My undergrad was geology, but the interest has always been there on the water. That's why I decided, to do my postgrad that way. But sort of, I've always been a 50-50 between geology and, hydrology. But because I got the opportunity to practice in geology, that's where I've been for the past 5 years. So for me, I think this session is really important for me to sort of have that view of what's on the other side. Because being in the mining industry, like Oudi mentioned, it's production, pushing exploration targets, pushing production targets. That's my daily bread. But I've always just also been that borderline similar to her. And I think the session has helped me really introspect a bit. So yeah, thank you so much.
We love feedback like that, Felisa. Thank you so much for the good words of motivation. I'm going to pop in and ask Oudi or Maike if they have any other comments that they want to put in from their background.
I would say I get a lot of geology people who want to transition into hydrogeology, and perhaps they're not getting the opportunities yet to transition. But like Nicolette said, don't wait for those opportunities to come to you. You can either study a short module course just to get yourself introduced to the concepts of Darcy's law, just to get yourself acquainted with the principles of hydrogeology, and volunteer. I know there's always field work happening somewhere in hydrogeology over the weekend, and it normally runs over the weekend, the whole night somewhere, just to get a sense and feel. And if that's what you really want, and then go for it, you would probably be able to speak up about your interest in an interview and show your interest in a bit of experience that you've seen, and cross over into hydrogeology.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also just say that don't be intimidated by all the studied hydrogeologists from they've always known to be that, because I think sometimes it can be a bit daunting when you are just learning the hydrogeo side to it. But remember that the geology side is a big sector and a big chunk of the work as well, and having that base and understanding is actually so helpful. And I think just remember that when you get sometimes you meet people, or I've met sometimes people who they'll be like a bit questioning why you only know geology and now you're going into the hydro, and I'm like, yeah, but my geology is actually helping me with a lot of the base work and understanding stuff. And I think we need to remember that coming from the geology background.
Oh, Felisa's put a thumbs up and heart. She seems very happy and inspired. Great. Mapasholi, I see you've got your hand up. Would you like to chat to us?
Hi, everyone. So I've got a question for Oudi. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you transitioned from a mining environment to government. Can you just tell me what that transition was like for you and what you find the differences to be? I'm not sure if in mining you were in the private sector, but I'm just wondering how the private sector and government have been for you.
Thanks for the question. So I transitioned from geology into hydrogeology. So in hydrogeology, I was in consulting, and I was also involved in a bit of research for an international water organization. And the difference between government and the private sector, which is mining and consulting, is that the private sector is mainly driven on profits, and if you're going into the public sector, you're driven on long-term agendas and in being able to implement and influence the groundwater sector. So you would need to review a lot of how things are done, and also voice out your opinions on why things shouldn't be done the way they are suggested on paper. So I would suggest you get as much technical expertise as you can before you move into public service. That will offer you a great opportunity to contribute meaningfully, as well as you're more likely to easily find your way within public service, as opposed to if you were to come there either as a graduate. You wouldn't be exposed to many other facets of hydrogeology, either fieldwork or other facets of hydrogeology like geophysics or modeling or there's a variety. So you may find yourself more on the administrative, more on the desktop kind of work, and not getting a chance to bite into the actual hardcore hydrogeology because of the type of work that's been done in government or public service. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it definitely does. Thanks.
Annalisa, I just want to support what Oudi said. I've started with the department as basically someone that just finished my master's. That was one in environmental management. And I was lucky that I could spend almost 7 years almost exclusively in the field. Most of the people that joined the department after that as graduate trainees or even as full scientists was given licenses to evaluate. And you cannot evaluate the license if you don't know what's going on in the field. So it is important to have that technical know-how and field expertise to do your license evaluations properly.
Thanks, Nicolette.
Very good comments for the government versus private, public versus private. I must say it does sometimes I do think of that when I write a report. You put in so much effort into a report and you hope the person that holds it and makes the final decision actually knows what they're doing. So I like both of your comments, and what Oudi said. Actually, I wasn't quite aware of that if you start off in government, you perhaps don't have much exposure to a lot more. And that was very interesting for me. Never have worked in public before. Well, does anyone on the floor have other comments, contributions, anything else they'd like to say? I see the chat is sounding very positive. Anyone have something to say or a question to add?
Annalisa, if you'd allow me to just make a quick comment. We do need a lot of experienced hydrogeologists in the public service. So I do encourage you all to get that experience in private sector and come and help us apply pressure where necessary to get groundwater seen and valued as much as we value it. Because from where I sit, I think we are traditionally outnumbered in terms of the surface water guys. So we find some of the groundwater decisions being made by surface water specialists, and that if we have more hydrogeologists in the public service, we are able to turn those things around and ensure that things run smoothly and groundwater gets the recognition it deserves.
Adding to that, do you think that there's a lot of job opportunity in public sector? What is your feel in terms of employment opportunities and things like that?
There are plenty of employment opportunities in the public service, and yes, I would encourage you all to get that experience and come join us in public service. We need more hydrogeologists to contribute meaningfully to a water security agenda, especially in the wake of climate change. As we all now know, there's drilling activities everywhere, and groundwater or specialist hydrogeologists are needed to inform those decisions, draw the line, or either decline or accept what's going on local scale, national scale, or regional scale. So there is employment opportunities in public service.
Great, we'll get skilled up and send you our CVs. Tapelo, you've got your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Just a follow-up question to what Oudi was saying. Great conversation, guys. I'm enjoying it quite a lot. My question is this. You mentioned that the surface water specialists are getting more decision-making powers there. Are you saying that engineers are deciding the future of groundwater instead of geohydrologists or hydrogeologists?
Hi, Tapel. I'm not saying that explicitly making those decisions simply because of their position. I think it's simply because of the numbers and their numbers based on where we come from. Surface water was the major source of water supply in the country. So we don't have, I think, adequate numbers of hydrogeologists to be everywhere. So we can't be everywhere. So in our absence, where we are not present, those decisions automatically would then need to be made by those people who are there. So I'm not saying they're making those, even though there's hydrogeologists in the room, in a room where there isn't a hydrogeologist. So obviously surface water specialist would then have to make the decision, but we can balance that out with our numbers and getting in here in public service.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks.
Anna, I think you're muted.
Oh, thank you. I said, I think I'll leave it for 1 or 2 more questions, and then we might call it a day if there's anyone that wants to say anything. I noticed there's some guys in the crowd. Would you guys like to say anything from your perspective? Do you think that we are, do you think that our opinion kind of matches yours? What do you guys say? Thumbs up.
Hi, Anna.
No, come on, yeah.
Angela here. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for this talk. It's very fruitful, very nice to hear your perspective, your side of the story, because sometimes we think everyone gets the same opportunities because, everyone gets the same access in between inverted commas. But it's nice to have conversations like this so that now I can also go and sit back as a man and think about how I treat women in the field, like my colleagues, because like I said, we don't always think about like your feelings or anything like that. So, but I specifically like the comment of, I think it was Maike, where she mentioned that you must actually go into the field and not try to be like the man and actually be the woman that you are, because I mean, that's the way it should be. And just that my question is actually, what can we as men further do to like make you feel more welcome in industry? And the second one, if there's some juniors here based in Gauteng, reach out to the consultants. We always need some cheap labor in the field. Thanks.
That's the consulting side of Angelo, the cheap labor. Yes, you see, consulting is very profitable. But ladies, do you have any advice of how the men can treat us better?
Annalisa, I'll go. I think I mentioned it earlier. If they could just remove the bias goggles, like with the example of the female pilot, once there's a slight turbulence, everybody starts grabbing at their seats or getting worried. But if it was a male pilot, they would be okay and even more relaxed that I'm going to be fine. So if they could just remove those goggles, bias goggles, I think that's a starting point.
I agree. I think that it's just that, you know, like we say that we want to come as we are. It's accept us then for who we are. We're not gonna think the same as you. We're not gonna be the same as you in the field. Like I said, we bring our own kind of flair to it all. So just have an open mind and accept us as we are. We will also teach you something.
I think what's very helpful for a man to do is, you know, offer to drive the bakkie on hills. Also, pick up the equipment to the borehole every single time. I'm joking. But these would be very useful things. Cool. Okay. Sichaba. I see your hand is up. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah. Yes. And now, just like to say thanks, ladies. I've never worked with. Okay, I've worked with ladies, but I've never been on site and did some stuff with them on site. It's only in the office where we'll interact and stuff. So hearing from you guys, with your experience when you go in the field and do what you're supposed to do.
Sichaba, the reception's not very good on your end. We can't really hear. I think we lost him. I think the reception just it had enough. Did anyone catch what he was saying?
Probably because he's a man.
I think he was referring, if I was correct, about that he hasn't worked with women in the field before. That's I think he's worked with ladies in the office, but not in like a field environment. And then I don't know, then we lost him.
Angela?
I don't want to talk too much, but yeah, just a comment. Sometimes you think the bias is there because maybe sometimes you feel that there's a natural bias, but maybe sometimes go and do some introspection, and it might sometimes be your own insecurities, you know. I've worked with two brilliant ladies in the field, and they always doubted themselves. And I was like, ladies, you are great at what you're doing. Like, I always encourage them. And they turned out being great in it. I hope they believe in themselves now. But I mean, like, in general, yes, there is bias out there, but own the space, go into the field, show the man what you can do, basically.
Annalisa, I kind of want to say Angelo is right in a lot of ways, because perspective is very important. If you're going to feel that like people don't like you, whatever, that victim mentality, some people like to call it, you're going to see it everywhere. I wrote the same letter to two different people, asking them the same level of cooperation. The one person accepted it and says, yes, I will help, I work with you. The other one decided, I just wanted to make life difficult for him. So perspective is a very important thing. And we need to realize that we can contribute just as much as our male colleagues can.
Yes, I think we've learned quite a few important life lessons, but two of them is take initiative and believe in yourself. Don't have victim mentality. I think we should kind of maybe wrap this up if there's one other comment before this turns into the next manosphere. But yes, anyone else has something to say? Okay. Well, I'm taking it that we're all very happy and we're very proud as women to be in the field, and men are equally as proud to have us there. We just want to thank you as the panel for your great contribution. I think a lot of you come from so much different backgrounds, have a lot of experience, and you guys had very good input in the session. So thank you so much. I myself have learned a lot. And yeah, I'd just like to thank you guys for your efforts.
Thank you guys. Lovely meeting you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. I learned a lot.
Actually, before we go, is it okay if we all just put on our cameras for a quick picture? I know that we might not be all camera ready, but it would be nice. It would be good. At count of 3, we can all just hold on. Let me get my snipping tool out. Okay, hold the smile because I'm going to snip a picture. So 1, 2, 3, say groundwater as long as you can, and we'll take a great picture. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you guys all for being here and really enjoying the session. Thanks for all. Your feedback. Have a great night.